Welcome to Nightingale College Podcast. This series is called Nursing and Nutrition. In this episode, we are going to be discussing alcohol and alcoholism. So, if you recall, alcoholism is a disorder in where there is an addiction to alcohol, and sometimes alcohol tends to be more important than maybe work, relationships, and even eating. So, it can become very, very addictive the more that someone prioritizes that alcohol, and literally they become addicted to the alcohol, where that becomes their primary, almost their primary function in life is just to continue to consume alcohol. When that occurs, there can be several vitamin deficiencies. One of which that occurs is thiamine deficiency. So, if you remember, that's part of why there is a repletion or replacement of that thiamine that's lost in the hospital. And that can be done using what's called a banana bag, is what they call it, just as kind of a nickname. But that's where those B vitamins are replaced in order to correct those vitamin deficiencies that occur when alcohol is consumed in excess. Malnutrition can also happen when there's too much alcohol consumed because the body is going to focus on metabolizing the alcohol, and alcohol does have calories in it. So that can lead to patients feeling full and feeling like they don't want to eat as much because they've already consumed some calories, even though that would be like what we call an empty calorie, where there's calories there, but there's not a nutrition or there's no vitamins, minerals, fiber attached to that. If the alcoholism progresses, there can be an accumulation of fat in the liver. When this happens, it can cause something called fatty liver. That is an early sign of excess alcohol consumption, and it can be reversible if the drinking stops. Now, if drinking continues, alcoholic hepatitis can occur, and that's a severe form of liver failure caused by drinking alcohol. However, that can be reversed as well. If the alcoholic hepatitis continues, and there's no change in behavior, or maybe if the consumption of alcohol increases over time, cirrhosis will develop. Now, cirrhosis is a chronic and irreversible liver disease, which results in the loss of functioning liver cells, and there's more of an accumulation of fibrous connective tissue. And the liver can look very enlarged because of that. Fibrous connective tissue that is there. So again, cirrhosis is not reversible, and sometimes I find that once patients get the diagnosis of cirrhosis, they think, "Oh, this now I'll start making a change. I get it now. Like it's the third time this has progressed, and I'm ready to make a change." But sadly, by that time, the cirrhosis is irreversible, and so that's a difficult conversation for the medical team to have with the patient. And know that it's best to support patients in maybe getting some help or treatment for their alcoholism before it progresses all the way to cirrhosis. Now, for alcohol metabolism, there are small amounts of alcohol that is absorbed in both our mouth and our stomach, but the small intestine does the remainder. It does the bulk of the absorption. And when alcohol is absorbed, it goes into the bloodstream. So it's circulated in our blood and then goes to the liver to be metabolized. So there are two systems for alcohol metabolism. One is called ADH, or alcohol dehydrogenase. That's an enzyme that comes and it breaks down the alcohol into acetaldehyde. That is then further metabolized into aldehyde dehydrogenase, or ALDH, and that's another enzyme, and it turns it into acetate. The other system is called microsomal ethanol oxidizing system, or MEOS. That is activated during periods of heavy drinking, and the system, that MEOS system, metabolizes any excess ethanol that is ingested. But what happens to the acetate after the alcohol is metabolized? That acetate then goes into the blood circulation and it stays in the liver cells to be converted to acetyl CoA, where it is used to produce another molecule like carbon dioxide, or it's used for synthesis of fatty cells and cholesterol. So that's where that fatty liver can happen. Sometimes people think, well, I didn't eat any extra fat. How can this happen as a result of alcoholism? And it's because that acetate then can lead to a synthesis of fatty acids and cholesterol. There are some recommendations now that are being put into motion that recommend if a patient hasn't started to drink, not to drink at all. Um, we'll see how those recommendations pan out, but the thought is that alcohol can be so addictive, and the current recommendations are that if an appropriate amount of alcohol, if chosen to partake in, that women should have no more than one alcoholic beverage a day and men should have no more than two alcoholic beverages a day. So I know for some people, they think that's not much at all to be limiting to. And for others who have chosen to abstain from alcohol, they think, oh, that's easy. I can meet that because I'm not going to drink at all. But know that there is more of a push that's happening, stating that, oh, if you're not ever, if you've never had any alcohol, not to start. And they are going to be soon putting on the Attorney General's warning on alcohol, stating that it can be linked to cancer. So that's a new labeling law that is going into effect that you might see be starting. But when there is a lot of alcohol that is consumed for that alcoholism, dehydration is common. Now, a question I get asked a lot is, well, how can I be dehydrated if I drank alcohol, like I was still consuming something? But that alcohol acts as a diuretic, meaning it will stimulate the kidneys to produce more urine, causing fluid loss. Alcohol also interferes with ADH or antidiuretic hormone, which regulates fluid retention in the kidneys. So, as it interferes with that, we actually are losing more fluid because of that interference. So, it's very easy to become dehydrated if you are consuming alcohol on a regular basis. If you were to have a question, maybe on a quiz or on the final, about how to calculate how many calories are in alcohol, remember there are 7 calories per 1 gram of alcohol. Now, we're not going to just say, okay, figure it out from there. We'll give you a little bit more detail on that. So, let's say, for example, you're given a case study of a patient who drank 3 beers, and there's 14 grams of alcohol in each beer, and each beer contained 150 calories. So, if you got a question that said, oh, how many grams of alcohol did Joey consume? Knowing there's 14 grams of alcohol in each beer, we could take 14 and there were 3 beers. So 14 times 3 equals 42 grams and 42 grams of alcohol. Or another question might say, how many calories from alcohol did Joey consume? Now, we would have to take those 42 grams of alcohol that he consumed, but we need to find out the calories from that. So we would take 42 grams times 7, because there's 7 calories per 1 gram of alcohol, and that would equal 294 calories. Or maybe we would get a question that would say, how many calories from beer did Joey consume? So, in the example that I gave, there were 150 calories per beer, and this person, we'll just say Joey, this person had 3 beers. So we would take 150 calories times 3 beers to get a total of 450 calories in the beers, while only 294 of those calories came from alcohol. If you have questions on how to make that calculation, please reach out to your instructor. We are here and happy to help you to figure that out. Thank you for watching this brief podcast as we reviewed alcohol. Take care.